Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Christopher Ward C1 Moonphase 40. This watch is available from christopherward.com in two versions. On the genuine Italian leather strap, the price is €2,495. On the consort bracelet you're looking at, the price is €2,665 respectively. In 2024, this piece was nominated for a GPHG award. GPHG stands for Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève. It is a very respected and prestigious award, and Christopher Ward deserve credit because it is a great achievement for the brand to have a piece nominated for a GPHG award. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a watch box which is protected by this black cardboard outer sleeve, and as you can see the sleeve is branded with the Christopher Ward twin flag emblem and Christopher Ward text logo. The twin flag emblem is inspired by the English flag and Swiss flag because Christopher Ward are an English brand and their watches are Swiss made. So one removes the sleeve and I'll show you the watch box. So we have a vinyl coated sleeve with the twin flag emblem embossed and a drawer which you withdraw from the sleeve. The drawer is made from solid bamboo, and they deserve credit because this indicates Christopher Ward's commitment to using environmentally friendly, sustainable materials. Bamboo is of course a sustainable material. Now on the end of the drawer we have two magnets. Often I get comments from collectors on my videos when they see magnets used in watch boxes because they're concerned about the magnets magnetizing the movements, but I want to clarify something. The magnets that Christopher Ward are using are strong enough to attract to the other magnets inside the sleeve, so it does pull close with a nice magnetic attraction, but the magnets are not strong enough. They don't produce enough magnetic field to magnetize the movement, so they're perfectly safe. Now inside the base of the drawer, it's fully upholstered with black vinyl to a good standard. There's a cutout in the base, and this piece of folded metal, which is vinyl coated, is a nice snug fit, so it does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping. And another thing I like about it is inside the sleeve is fully lined with black velour fabric, and the purpose of that, or the benefit, is it reduces friction. It means that the bamboo drawer slides in and out of the sleeve nice and smoothly with low friction, and then you've got the two pairs of magnets attracting each other with a nice positive attraction. So good thought through design, very aesthetically pleasing, good presentation, and of course sustainable materials. And this is an example to other mid-tier brands of how to get presentation correct. For example, they could have just used the default option of a less expensive plastic watch box. This is good presentation. Now, with regards to the items that come with the piece, it comes with this cardboard envelope, and it says the not so painful bit because inside it contains the purchase invoice. And this is the owner's instruction manual specifically for this C1 Moonphase. Clear, concise diagrams. The instructions are in English, and it details the operation of the movement used, which is the Christopher Ward caliber JJ04 automatic, which is based upon a modified Sellita caliber SW220 automatic. One also gets this cardboard envelope, which is embossed with a twin flag emblem, and inside it contains two items, which I'll take out and show you. So you get 3 silver twin flag stickers, and you also get a microfiber polishing cloth, which is branded with the twin flag emblem, as you can see. I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth, irrespective of the price point of a piece. And lastly, one also gets this fold-out leaflet, as you can see. And inside it thanks you for your purchase, and it also details the terms and conditions of the warranty. Now inside you can see there's a plastic warranty card, and the watch is covered by a 60/60 guarantee, so I'll explain what that is. On the last page you can see it says 5-year movement guarantee. So the first 60 refers to 60 days, the second 60 refers to 60 months or 5 years. So the watch itself is covered by a 60-day policy. So for example, if you purchase the watch and for any reason you're unhappy with it, within the first 60 days from the date of purchase you can return it to Christopher Ward, either for a full refund or alternatively a replacement piece within 60 days. The other 60 refers to 60 months or 5 years, so the movement itself is covered by a 5-year or 60-month warranty. So for example, if the movement develops a defect or a fault within the first 5 years or 60 months, you can return the watch to Christopher Ward and they will repair or replace the movement within 60 months from the date of purchase. I want to give due credit to Christopher Ward here because often mid-tier brands only cover their watches at this price point with 1 or 2 year warranties. To get 5 years of warranty on the movement is exceptional, and they deserve full credit for this. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 40.5mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 47.9mm, a thickness of 13.7mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The consort bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16.5mm at the 2-button push butterfly clasp. The butterfly clasp is signed to a good standard with high definition engraving of the Christopher Ward text logo, as you can see. 2 mirror polished triggers are recessed beneath the flanks of the butterfly clasp, and they are correctly proportioned. We have a boxed top hat double dome sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished Dolphin handset and the aventurine dial, which has a glossy enamel finish to it. So as you can see, we also have a cutout in the aventurine dial, and there's a moon disc which has 2 moons on it. The moons are made from a material called globalite, which is a mixture of ceramic and superluminova. Now, my favourite aspect of the piece is the aventurine dial. Aventurine originally was made from translucent glass in Italy, and it sparkles. So rather like the stars in the night sky, it has that sparkling effect, and the aventurine dial on this piece is absolutely mesmerising. Just gorgeous, lovely glossy finish to it, and I like the way the aventurine sparkles catch the light, rather like stars in the night sky. It's just absolutely mesmerising. So the 2 moons have a textured finish. One thing to note is previous versions of the C1 Moonphase had smaller moons on the moon disc. Christopher Ward have enlarged the moons by 25% on this piece, and the benefit of that is it improves the legibility but also makes them more aesthetically pleasing because you can see the detail of the textured finish rather like the surface of the moon. So the globalite has a ceramic and superluminova mix which has a textured 3D finish to it, and they've sculpted the globalite into a textured finish rather like the moon. So in daylight it does look like looking at a moon, but when it's in the dark it glows white rather like the moon glowing in the night sky, which I'll show you in the Lume Test. Another favourite aspect of this piece is the Dolphin handset, because they're not just flat Dolphin hands, they're clearly laser cut and they're mirror polished to a flawless standard. The quality of the hand finishing on this piece is exceptional. It's the kind of handset finishing one expects to see on a high tier piece costing in excess of €5,000. But this is not a high tier €5,000 piece. This is a mid tier piece costing €2,665 respectively. But that is the level of hand finishing. The facets are mirror polished to a flawless standard. The Dolphin hands are correctly proportioned. The Dolphin minute hand extends all the way to the circumference of the dial, so it's long, and also the minute hand also extends all the way to the circumference of the dial with a nice counterbalance on it. The Dolphin hour hand is correctly proportioned. One can clearly differentiate between the Dolphin hands. The hour hand is shorter than the minute hand, so the proportions are good, the legibility is good because they contrast very well with the glossy aventurine dial. What I like about the dial is they haven't over-branded it with unnecessary text or specification. For example, they haven't printed or applied a Christopher Ward twin flag emblem which would spoil it, because this dial is a work of art. They simply have printed Swiss made in high definition white text at 6 o'clock. And that is just the right amount of information. It does make the dial look very minimalist, it's very clean, and I like the fact that there's an absence of the twin flag emblem. We do not need to have branding on the dial. So Swiss made at 6 o'clock is just the right amount of information. It gives the piece a high tier level finishing to it. Proportions of it are very good. I like the 25% larger 2 moons on the moon disc, and the cutout is correctly proportioned. The aventurine dial is beautiful, and the textured finish of the globalite moons are also beautiful. Now, with regards to the bezel, it's solid 316L grade stainless steel. Concentric CNC lathe tool machining to the top bevel of it, which is good because it's not reflective, it refracts the light, but the edge of it has a nice mirror polished finish to it which contrasts very well, and that complements the large mirror polished bevels which run the full length of the light catcher case. The light catcher case, as the name suggests, catches the light because it's brushed satin finish on the flanks and brushed satin finish on the tops of the curved lugs, but we have this transition which marks the transition between the top of the lugs and the flanks, brushed satin finishing on the top, brushed satin finishing on the flanks. But this nice large mirror polished bevel catches the light, as the name suggests, light catcher. Nice large undercuts which is curved, no sharp edges to the undercuts of the flank, and on the crown guard side crown side, we also have a nice large chamfer which deburrs and deletes the sharp edge on the undercut, and that transition, the large mirror polish bevel on the top edge of the case. So the proportions of the case are excellent, 40.5 by 47.9, and I like the slender profile to the flanks. It doesn't look slab-sided, it doesn't look too tall or too thick like a slab of 316L grade stainless steel. This is a tall piece at 13.7, but that's due to the 2mm thick boxed top hat crystal, which adds 2mm to it, but it does also have an exhibition case back, which adds some thickness, but the light catcher case is deceptive because it reduces the visual impact of it. It looks thinner than it actually is, so it does look like a very well proportioned case. I do like the proportions of the flanks. Now, let's look at the bracelet and the clasp in detail. So, the end links in the consort bracelet articulate freely. They don't feel stiff or kink, which is good. They don't have excessive lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play. So, articulates freely, feels nice and smooth. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excessive play, lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play. This is an example to other mid-tier brands of how to get the tolerances, build quality and quality control correct. The end links are well profiled, they're a good snug fit to the head of the piece, and the curved profiling of the end links matches the curved profile of the lugs. So quality of the finishing, both the mirror polishing and the brush satin finishing to the end links is 10 out of 10. Consort bracelet is finished to perfection. Beautiful luster to the brush satin finish outer links and centre links, and then the middle links, which are mirror polished, add some interest because they are mirror polished to a flawless standard. So nice fine grained luster to the brush satin finishing, and that contrasts with the flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. Now, I'm pleased to see screw pins used in the bracelet rather than push pins. Early versions of Crystal Ward pieces used push pins, and I consider that to be a cost-cutting measure which detracted from the watch. But these use on the consort bracelet screw pins, and that means that they are a nice tight fit. Good tolerances. So the links in the consort bracelet articulate smoothly. They don't feel stiff or kink, but the bracelet doesn't rattle. It doesn't have excessive play in the screw pin links. So it doesn't have excessive longitudinal, lateral, side to side or up and down play, and yet it articulates freely. Again, this is an example to other mid-tier brands of how to get bracelet build quality, quality control, finishing and tolerances correct. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, all of the links in the consort bracelet articulate freely. They feel silky smooth. This is fantastic. Doesn't rattle. Now, the benefit of this bracelet is it does not pull arm hairs. The other benefit is there are no sharp edges to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks, so they've deburred and chamfered the edges to the flanks to a good standard. So doesn't pull arm hair, articulates freely, doesn't rattle, tolerances are good. The other thing I really like about it is, and they deserve credit for this, they have thought through the butterfly clasp very well, because often it's a problem with butterfly clasp bracelets. It's hard to get the correct fits because there are no micro adjustments. So there's no on-the-fly adjustment, there's no ratcheting mechanism, there are no micro adjustments in the clasp itself. Sometimes adding or subtracting one full link from a butterfly clasp bracelet doesn't give the collector the perfect fit. The bracelet feels too tight or too loose, and you can never get the perfect fit by adding or subtracting one full link. But Christopher Ward deserve credit because they've thought this through. They've put a half link either side of the butterfly clasp. So we've got a half link on the 6 o'clock side and a half link on the 12 o'clock side. This means that it has two benefits. You can get the perfect fit because you can add or subtract 1.5 links. So the bracelet isn't going to be too tight or too loose. The other benefit is you can centralise the clasp because, again, often the problem is if you add or subtract one full link, that makes the butterfly clasp sit off centre on wrist. It doesn't sit bang on the centre. It pulls either too far to the left or the right, too far to the 6 or the 12 o'clock side. But by having a half link either side, for example, you can remove a half link either side or one full link either side, the clasp remains central, bang on the centre of the wrist. So this is a credit. Often they don't have this. Other brands don't do it with butterfly clasps. They don't have half links. Christopher Ward do. So let's look at the internals. 2 button push triggers have a nice firm resistance, good robust mechanism. The butterfly clasp opens freely. Flawless mirror polishing to the top side, underside and flanks. The 4 corners of the internals don't have sharp edges. They've been deburred very well. The flanks don't have any sharp edges on the top side or the underside, so it's been deburred and chamfered well. Flawless mirror polishing to it. Let's check the hinge pins. So outer left hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play. Inner left hand hinge pin also articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excessive play. Inner right hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't have excessive play. Finally, let's check the outer right hand hinge pin. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excessive play. Nice tight tolerances. The benefit of this is all 4 hinge pins in this butterfly clasp have good tight tolerances. This is an example to other mid-tier brands at the €2,665 price point of how to get the build quality, quality control and tolerances correct. Again, this is high tier level butterfly clasp finishing at a mid-tier price point. This is not a €5,000 high tier piece. This is €2,665 in the mid-tier, but we are getting a high tier level butterfly clasp. 10 out of 10. They could not improve upon it. It is the perfect butterfly clasp. Snaps shut with a nice positive click and opens freely. 2 button push triggers are firm, feels robust and reliable. Right, so let's test the push-pull crown execution. So, solid 316L grade stainless steel crown, coin edge finished. Chamfer on the edge of it, which deletes the sharp tips to the coin edge teeth. And as you can see, it's embossed with a Christopher Ward twin flag emblem. So the background is matte bead blasted effect, and the twin flag emblem itself is mirror polished. No sharp edges to the embossed twin flag, correctly proportioned crown, and it's very well proportioned because you can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb. As it's a push-pull crown, which provides an effective hermetic seal to 30 meters, which is perfectly acceptable for a daily wear piece, the benefit is you don't need to unscrew it in order to manually wind the movement, which is the Christopher Ward caliber JJ04 automatic. So in the closed position, we can manually wind the Christopher Ward caliber JJ04 automatic to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. Now, the movement is based upon a modified Sellita caliber SW220, which is Swiss made. Feels exactly the same as the caliber SW220, which it is based upon. I'll explain what they do to modify it. So they take a Sellita SW220, and what they do is they delete the date complication. They remove the date wheel from the movements, and then they add 4 wheels in place of the date wheel. So rather than having a date wheel beneath the dial, we now have 4 wheels, and the 4 wheels drive the moon disc, and they have these 2 globe lights moons applied to the moon disc. So the 4 wheels drive, rather than a date complication, rather than moving a date wheel, they move 4 wheels, and the 4 wheels move the moon disc. But there's no discernible difference. When you manually wind the caliber JJ04, it feels exactly the same as manually winding a caliber SW220. Feels nice and smooth. Medium resistance, one can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. So, there's no date complication, it's deleted. Putting it out to the first click position isn't the date complication. There is no date wheel, but we have a moon disc instead. So the 4 wheels are now driving the moon disc. When you rotate the crown anti-clockwise, you would expect it to advance a date complication, but what it's now doing, the 4 wheels are driving the moon disc. And there are 2 applied moons, and as I've detailed, with this version of the C1 Moonphase, Christopher Ward have enlarged the moons by 25% to make them larger, more legible and more aesthetically pleasing, and the benefit is you can see them better in the dark because they glow in the dark using X1WL C1 Superluminova. The moons have a textured finish, and they're a mixture of ceramic and superluminova. So the ceramic gives it a white tone, and the superluminova obviously glows in the dark, but the mixture of the ceramic and the superluminova does give the impression of the textured finish. Does look like looking at a moon. Now, this Moonphase complication will run accurately to an accuracy of 1 day within 185 years. So once you set the Moonphase complication on this piece, it will then run accurately for up to 185 years, which is incredible. And they deserve credit because it is complicated to remove a date complication from an SW220 and modify it with 4 wheels and then add the moon disc to it, but they've done a good job. Now, in terms of resistance, it does feel heavy. There's a lot of friction in it. Now, I don't dislike that because you can feel the friction of the gearing, the 4 wheels driving the moon disc. It feels robust and reliable, so I'm confident in the long-term durability of it. And I like the fact there's no backplay. When you rotate the crown anti-clockwise, there's an immediate response. The moon disc immediately rotates anti-clockwise. So you can set the 2 moons. Now, pulling it out to the second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead, so it's possible to set the time precisely to the second, but of course, in reality, we can't really set it to the second because we don't have any chaptering. There's no 60-minute ticks on the dial, and we don't have any indices on the dial. So, although you can hack the movement and it stops the second hand dead, we don't really get the benefit of it. Subjectively, they could have enhanced this piece by adding a chaptering with 60-minute ticks, and the benefit of that is you could hack the movements and then set the time precisely using the second hand registering on the 60-minute ticks. But again, subjectively, some collectors would argue that would spoil the dial because it's minimalist. We don't have the crystal wall twin flag emblem printed on the dial, for example, or an applied silver twin flag emblem. This piece is a work of art with the aventurine dial, the cutout for the 2 moons on the Moonphase complication and the dolphin hands. By printing minute ticks on the chaptering, it would spoil the minimalist design. I think they've made the correct decision. So you cannot set the time precisely to the second without the chaptering with the minute ticks, but it does retain the aesthetic. It does still look like a beautiful work of art. I think it looks good. So, pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. You can see the second hand begins to sweep around the dial smoothly at the characteristic 4Hz sweep. Because the caliber JJ04, like the Solita caliber SW220, which it's based upon, runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour, which is a frequency of 4Hz. I like it because movements that run at 3 Hz have a second hand which stutters or judders around the dial because they run at 21,600 vibrations per hour. 4 Hz gives a nice smooth sweep to the second hand, which is more aesthetically pleasing. So movement works well. Hand winding feels smooth. Hacking works well. And also the Moonphase complication works well. When you pull it out to the first click, it feels like pulling it out to a date complication click. And when you rotate the crown anti-clockwise, the moon disc cycles through the full phases of the moon, and you've got 2 moons on the moon disc, so you don't have to cycle through the 12 hours for a long time. For example, you don't need to rotate the crown anti-clockwise many times to get the moon to come back up to full moon, as you can see. Works very well, feels smooth, nice firm resistance to it, feels robust. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click. I really like it. Now, some collectors might be critical of 30 meters of water resistance, but this is not a dive piece. We are looking at a daily wear piece which could potentially be worn as a dress piece. 30 meters and a push-pull crown rather than a screw-down crown with 50 or 100 meters is acceptable. It's good enough for a daily wear piece. I'm not going to be critical of it. 30 meters is enough. This is water resistant. Let's look at the exhibition case back. So, screwed down exhibition case back, which provides an effective hermetic seal to 30 meters. The stainless steel portion is concentric CNC lathe tool machined to a good standard. We've also got a nice large mirror polished chamfer to it, which deletes the sharp edge. The center section is glazed with sapphire crystal, and it does a good job of displaying the movement. Now, it features a rotor which is signed with Christopher Ward and also their Colin McCone finish. Usually Christopher Ward pieces have a Colin McCone rotor which is silver. But on this C1 Moonphase we're looking at, it has a Colin McCone finish, but the rotor is DLC coated to make it black, but we still have the twin flag Colin McCone finish repeated over and over again. Does look aesthetically pleasing. The movement is decorated with blued screws. Now, it doesn't have pelage finishing as per a top grade or chronometer grade SW220, which this is based upon. It is clearly standard or a lab ore grade because it just has the blued screws, but it is nice to have a sapphire crystal exhibition case back displaying it. And the 4 flathead screws are well finished and they do a good job of securing the screwed down case back. So it's engraved with a circumference with the reference number, serial number of the piece, and that it's 3 ATM, which is 30 meters water resistant, so just the right amount of information. Nice and low profile. It's not a bubble back case back, as you can see. The benefit is the flat sapphire center section sits very close to the wrist. It's nice and smooth, feels comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. I like that it's not a deep bubble back case back. So although this piece is quite thick at 13.7, it's not due to the exhibition case back, it's due to the 2mm thick box top pack crystal. The end links are a good snug fit to the head of the piece. Now, I like the quick release levers. I want to give credit here because often brands use quick release levers and they are flathead screws with slots in them. Now the problem is often they can be sharp, they rub against the wrist because the flathead screws have a domed profile to it with a slot cut in them, and the slots can be quite sharp and rub against the wrist. Crystal do a good job because the levers for the quick releases in the end links have flats on the profiles, they're not flathead screws, and the flats are very smooth. So they don't rub against the wrist, they don't feel scratchy and irritating and sharp. These feel nice and smooth, you can see. They're perfectly mirror polished. So the quality of the finishing is high tier level on the quick release levers, rather than just using the cost cutting measure of screwing in stainless steel screws, flathead screws with domed caps on them, and they are sharp. So these are nice and smooth, they feel good. And they've also got these two screws which actually secure the end link to the consort bracelet end link. So quality of the end link finishing is high tier level, it's €5,000 price point level, and the quick release levers negate the need for a spring bar tool. So that means if you want to exchange the consort bracelet for a strap, for example, it's easy to do. You don't need to use a spring bar tool, you can use the quick release levers. Quality of the finishing to the underside head of the piece is exceptional. The light catcher case is very well finished because we've got a nice large mirror polished chamfer to the edge of it, and that deletes the sharp edge to the undercut to the flanks of the light catcher case. So 10 out of 10 finishing, nice curved profile to the tips of the lugs, so they're deburred and chamfered very well. They don't have any sharp corners to the tips of the light catcher case. Finishing really is high tier level on the case back, bezel and head of the piece. So I'll give you wrist shots and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and I'm pleased to report that there are plenty of links in the consort bracelet to fit a very large wrist of even up to 9 inches. I have a large 8-inch wrist and I can still slide 2 fingers beneath the bracelet and butterfly clasp at all times. So as you can see, this would actually fit up to an incredible 9-inch wrist size. Plenty of links, so no concerns if you have a larger wrist. The consort bracelet is fantastic. It's very comfortable, articulates smoothly, doesn't pull arm hairs, no sharp edges to the flanks. I love the luster of the outer brushed satin finish outer links and the centre links, and that contrasts with the flawless mirror polishing to the middle links in the consort bracelet. So it articulates freely. We don't get a large gap because the end link in the bracelet articulates well beneath the tips of the lugs. The profile of the light catcher case is fantastic. Now, it's a large piece. It does wear with wrist presence as one would expect because we're not looking at a 39mm here. This is 40.5. So, clearly it's best suited to collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches. If you're a collector with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, you may find it dominates the wrist too much with too much wrist presence for your liking. But if you have a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches, you will enjoy the 40.5 wrist presence. I like it. The box top hat crystal gives it a vintage aesthetic because it looks rather like plexiglass or acrylic, which was used in the 1960s or 1970s. But of course, the benefit of using sapphire crystal is it is harder, more scratch resistant than acrylic or plexiglass, but it does retain the aesthetic. It looks like a vintage boxed top hat crystal. I love the profile of it. It's got a nice low dome to it, but we've got that 3D effect. When you tilt the piece at an oblique angle, you can see the edge of the box top hat crystal catch the light. Just absolutely beautiful. Does a really good job of displaying the aventurine dial, which has a glossy finish to it, which rather like the translucent glass made in Italy, and absolutely gorgeous the way it sparkles. And the 25% larger moon, which is made from globe light, also is clearly legible. So the AR coating works very well, and also the proportions of the case are very good. So lug to lug is 47.9. It's just a fraction below the 48mm sweet spot, just 0.1mm shorter than the perfect sweet spot of 48. So this will fit you regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively, because 48 is the perfect lug to lug, and at 47.9 it's very close to it. Consort bracelet looks good and feels good, so comfort level of this piece is exceptional. Feel good factor is exceptional. It just looks fantastic from every angle. The aventurine dial, the globe lights moon, the dolphin handset, the box top hat crystal. I like the large mirror polished bevels on the edge of the case, which complement the mirror polished edge of the chamfered bezel. Consort bracelet also has nice contrast between mirror polished middle links and the brushed satin finish luster of the outer links and the centre links. So it's very comfortable. And also the taper is perfection personified, 20:16. Butterfly clasp is also nice and low profile, doesn't feel too bulky, doesn't stick too proud from the wrist, and the 2-button push triggers are recessed, so again they're not too wide, very comfortable, very smooth, and I think it's just a fantastic looking piece. So perfect daily wear piece, and also could be worn as a dress piece on a leather strap, for example, but clearly best intended for collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches rather than 6 to 7. In terms of heft, it feels very well balanced. It doesn't feel like a top heavy piece, even though it's 13.8. This is 138 grams. Now bear in mind, it's 138, but with all the links in the bracelet to fit up to a 9-inch wrist. So of course, even I would remove 4 or 5 links to reduce the bracelet down to 8 inches. If you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you're going to be removing many links from the bracelet. That will reduce it to below 130 grams of heft. Needless to say, anything below 150 grams will be the sweet spot and therefore comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. So it feels balanced. The head of the piece balances the consort bracelet and the butterfly clasp. Doesn't feel top heavy, doesn't sit on top of the wrist like a slab of 316L grade stainless steel. It really does feel like a very well balanced head of the piece with a perfection personified taper of 20:16 on the consort bracelet. So head of the piece and bracelet balance. Now, the thing to note is it's 13.7, so it is a thick piece. 13mm is the sweet spot to easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. So at 13.7, it is 0.7mm, nearly a millimetre thick, and therefore it's going to be slightly more difficult to slip underneath a shirt cuff, but you can still do it. It is still practical for a daily wear piece, but that's something to bear in mind if you like low profile, thin pieces. This is tall due to the box top hat crystal, 13.7, but it is okay. So feel good factor is good, comfort level is good. So let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Globalite moons perform. Now, the Globalite moons are made from ceramic and Super Lume Nova mixed, and they're made from X1 WL-C1. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge up the moon to its absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This is stellar performance. Now, they deserve credit here because they could have just used BGW9. I've previously reviewed other Moonphase pieces, and they simply lume the moons with BGW9. Now, that makes the moon glow blue in the dark, which doesn't really look right because, of course, the moon in the night sky does not glow blue. It glows white. But if you look at this moon, you can see it has a textured finish. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. So the Globalite has a textured finish. It's not just flat, has a 3D effect and shadows on it, rather like the moon. But you can see it's clearly not glowing blue as per BGW9. It is glowing white. And that's the benefit of using X1 WL-C1 Super Lume Nova, because the X1 is a very bright exciter. And rather than just using blue BGW9, which would glow blue, the X1 gives it this white tone to it. So it does look just like a moon glowing in the dark. And I really like it. I think they deserve credit. They could have just used BGW9 and of course had a blue moon. And as I've detailed, the moon does not glow in the dark blue like BGW9. It just doesn't look right. Other brands do that. So looks good. I like it. Now, needless to say, this is not going to fade whatsoever. X1 is the brightest of Super Lume Nova, pure white tone to it. And by mixing X1 WL-C1 together, you get this nice white tone to it with a shadow of the ceramic. And I think the textured finish does look very good. So it really does look very similar to the moon glowing in the night sky in a white tone to it, like a full moon. And I think it's beautiful. And proportion is good. Now again, this is something I like about this piece. Early versions of the C1 Moonphase had a smaller, well, two smaller moons on the moon disc. They've enlarged the moons by 25%. They've made them larger. So in the dark, you can now see the detail to the Globalite, which is ceramic and Super Lume Nova, and it's better, it's more aesthetically pleasing. The moons are larger and they fill up the dial more. The cutout in the Aventurine dial is filled up with the two moons better, so I think they've made the right decision by enlarging the moons by 25%. So you can see the X1 is continuing to glow very brightly. The exciter is incredibly bright, but we've still got the shading of the ceramic in the moon, and it does really look like looking at a moon in the night sky. It's not going to fade whatsoever. This is stellar performance, so they haven't cut any corners with this whatsoever. Right, so let's discuss the movement use because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. So you'll all be familiar with the Sellita SW220, which is based upon the SW200-1. The architecture of the 220 is the same as the 200-1. So this is powered by a movement which Crystal will call the Calibre JJ04, because what they do is they take an SW220 and then they modify it. So as I've detailed, they delete the date complication, they remove the dates wheel and they replace the dates wheel with 4 wheels, and the 4 wheels drive the moon disc, and the moon disc has the 2 moons on, and the moons will run in phase to an accuracy of 1 year, an accuracy of 1 day in 185 years. So incredibly accurate moon phase complication. So the point is, the SW220 is a reliable, well-proven workhorse Swiss calibre. They decorate the rotor with a DLC plated Collie-McCone finished rotor and blued screws. They could further enhance it by using a top grade or chronometer grade SW220 with pelage finishing on it and the blue screws, but we do have blued screws which add some interest, and the sapphire crystal does a good job of displaying it. So the Calibre JJ04, like the SW220 which it's based upon, has 26 joules. It runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking. Date complication is deleted and replaced with 4 wheels. 41-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. Now, the standard grade of SW220, which this is based upon, has an accuracy of plus or minus 12 seconds per day. So rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Crystal are doing a good job of regulating the Calibre JJ04s they're using. And this one is running consistently at plus 5 seconds per day when it's fully wound to its maximum 41 hours. So plus 5 is actually within chronometer grade accuracy of -4 to +6, and it's certainly well within the accuracy of plus or minus 12 for the standard grade of SW220, which this is based upon. So accurate movement at plus 5, 41 hours is good, hand winding works well, hacking works well, and of course the moon phase complication, as I've demonstrated, also works well. So it's based upon the SW220, which is reliable. The accuracy, build quality, quality control and tolerances are all very good. Materials are good. Finishing is also good. So I like everything about it. You'll know from my previous reviews, the SW200, which the 220 is based upon, is one of my personal favourite movements. I like the reliability, the accuracy and the build quality of it. So no reservations whatsoever with the Calibre JJ04. I'm absolutely confident in the long-term durability, reliability and accuracy of it because it is based on a very reliable Swiss calibre. The SW220 is the correct choice to base moon phase complication movements on. It is very reliable. They've simply deleted the date wheel, replaced it with 4 wheels to drive the moon phase disc. Very good design. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So, mid-tier piece. On the genuine Italian leather strap, the price point is €2,495. On the consort bracelet you're looking at, the price point is €2,665. Yes, this is unquestionably excellent quality, and yes, it is unquestionably excellent value at €2,665. What we're looking at here is a high tier level finishing piece. The finishing to the head of the piece, the aventurine dial, the dolphin handset and the globe light moons are high tier level. This is the kind of finishing overall and quality overall one would expect with a €5,000 price point piece. I actually think Christopher would have undervalued this at €2,665. We're looking at a €5,000 quality piece retailed at a €2,665 price point. And this is the reason why it was nominated for a GPHG Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève award. That is the level of quality. So they deserve credit for modifying an SW220 to create the Calibre JJ04 automatic with a moon phase complication. And to create a moon phase complication that will run with an accuracy of 1 day in 185 years is a very impressive achievement. Are there any negatives? Is there anything I would change about it? None whatsoever. This is the perfect daily wear piece with a Moonphase complication, which could also be worn as a dress piece on a leather strap. So it's a versatile piece, comfort level is outstanding, feel good factor is outstanding. I like everything about it. So I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Crystal Ward C1 Moonphase 40. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.